So hey guys. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Family Guy. So let's start the series. The explosion wasn't supposed to happen. Peter would later insist that. Very loudly. Very confidently. While standing in what used to be his neighbor Cleveland's backyard, holding a garden gnome that had somehow become the subject of a heated custody dispute involving 3 different versions of himself that he'd accidentally created. But that came later. Right now, Naruto Uzumaki was falling. Not the controlled, wind in your hair, dramatic entry kind of falling that heroes in stories always experienced. This was the panicked, what did I do wrong, my ears are bleeding kind of falling. The kind where your stomach doesn't just drop, it stages a full rebellion against the rest of your body and tries to escape through your throat. He'd been in the middle of training. That was supposed to be the simple part. Boruto had asked him to demonstrate a space-time technique, just a small one, just to show how far he'd come since the war. And Naruto, who had never been able to resist showing off just a little when his son looked at him like that, had gathered his chakra and thought, yeah, I've got this. He did not have this. The last thing he remembered was the sickening feeling of something grabbing his chakra, not pulling it, not draining it, but redirecting it, like someone had reached into his chest and turned a key that wasn't supposed to be turned. Then colors he didn't have names for. Then nothing. Then. What the hell is that? Naruto hit something. Hard. The impact knocked the air out of his lungs and sent a sharp pain shooting up his spine. He rolled twice, maybe 3 times, his body moving on pure instinct as he tried to figure out where he was, what had hit him, and why everything smelled like gasoline and something vaguely resembling burnt cheese. He came to a stop against something warm and humming. A metal box of some kind, painted a faded red, with wheels underneath it. A cart? No. He'd seen pictures of these. Jiraiya had shown him once, in one of his books about other lands. A car. Naruto blinked, trying to clear the stars from his vision. The sky was wrong. Too gray. Too low. Like the ceiling of some massive indoor space instead of the open sky he'd known his whole life. The air was different too, heavier somehow, and it carried smells that didn't make sense. Smoke. Food. Something chemical that made his nose wrinkle. And sound. So much sound. Horns blaring. Voices shouting. A rhythmic thumping noise coming from somewhere nearby that he couldn't identify. And underneath it all, a constant, low-level hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. You okay, kid? Naruto's head snapped up. A man was leaning out of the car he'd crashed into, his face a mixture of annoyance and genuine concern. He was bald, with a thick mustache that looked like it had been drawn on with a permanent marker, and he was wearing some kind of uniform. You just fell out of the sky. The man continued, his voice climbing in pitch. You literally just fell out of the sky. Did anyone else see that? Lois, did you see that? He was shouting at someone in the passenger seat, a woman with red hair and sharp features, who was staring at Naruto with an expression that suggested she was trying very hard to decide whether she was hallucinating. I saw something, she said slowly. I'm not sure what I saw, but I saw something. Naruto pushed himself to his feet, ignoring the protests from his muscles. His chakra was wrong. There. But different. Like trying to breathe through a straw that was just slightly too small for his lungs. He could feel it, could still access it, but something was off. The sky, he said, his voice rougher than he intended. Where's the sky? The bald man, Peter, according to the name embroidered on his work shirt, looked up. It's up there. Last I checked. You might want to get your eyes checked, kid. Or your brain. Did you hit your head? You definitely hit your head. Lois, he hit his head. I hit my head. Naruto agreed, because that seemed simpler than trying to explain that he was fairly certain he'd just been thrown into an entirely different dimension. Where am I? Peter opened his mouth to answer, but before he could, a voice cut through the noise, high-pitched, imperious, and coming from somewhere near Naruto's feet. Well, this is embarrassing for everyone involved. Naruto looked down. A baby was staring at him. A baby in a yellow onesie, sitting in what appeared to be a miniature throne bolted into the back seat of the car. He had an enormous head, a pacifier dangling from a string around his neck, and the most unsettling expression of intellectual superiority Naruto had ever seen on a child. Which was saying something, considering he'd grown up with Gaara. I'm sorry, the baby continued, tilting his head in a way that was deeply unnatural for someone who couldn't legally consume solid food. But did you just fall out of the sky? That's your entrance? No portal, no dramatic lighting, no carefully timed arrival coinciding with a thunderclap? Just... He made a flapping motion with one tiny hand. Plop! Right onto the hood of a Toyota. Stewie. The woman, Lois, sighed. Be nice. I'm not being nice, I'm being honest. There's a difference. Niceness is a social construct designed to shield fragile egos from the uncomfortable truth that most people are disappointingly mediocre. He fixed Naruto with a look. Present company included, it seems. Naruto stared at the talking baby. Then he stared at the sky again, which was still wrong. Then he looked at his hands, where his chakra was still there but wrong, and then back at the baby, who was now examining his own fingernails with exaggerated disinterest. Okay, Naruto said slowly. I definitely hit my head. No. Stewie waved a dismissive hand. Your head is fine. What's not fine is your dimensional anchoring, which appears to be about as stable as my father's grasp on basic geography. He leaned forward, suddenly intensely interested. Where did you come from? How did you get here? And more importantly, his eyes narrowed. Can you do it again? Peter had gotten out of the car by now and was circling Naruto like a confused dog who'd just found a new species of squirrel. Lois, he's wearing a jumpsuit. Like a mechanic. But orange. Why is it orange? Is he from the future? Are you from the future? Did we win? Did the Patriots ever win another Super Bowl? Just give me that, I don't need anything else. I'm not from the future, Naruto said, because that at least was simple. I'm from Konoha. I was doing a space-time technique and something went wrong and now I'm here. Wherever here is. The word Konoha clearly meant nothing to any of them. Peter was still circling, Lois was pinching the bridge of her nose like she did when her children said something particularly stupid, and Stewie's face had gone very, very still. Space-time technique, the baby repeated. You're telling me you can manipulate the fabric of space-time? Voluntarily. Through what exactly? Some kind of biological energy source? Internal combustion? Are you part machine? Please tell me you're part machine. That would make this so much more interesting. It's chakra, Naruto said, and the word felt strange in his mouth here, in this place where the air itself seemed to resist it. Look, I don't know how to explain it. It's just something I can do. Chakra. Stewie's voice had gone flat. You're telling me you have access to a quantifiable energy field that allows you to bend the fundamental laws of physics, and you're just standing there in an orange jumpsuit, covered in dirt, talking to my idiot father in the middle of a street? Stewie, Lois snapped. That's enough. The boy clearly needs help. He's lost, he's confused, and he just fell out of the sky. We should take him to the hospital. The hospital? Peter finally stopped circling. But Lois, if he's from the future, the doctors are gonna want to run tests. They're gonna poke him with needles and shine lights in his eyes and ask him a bunch of questions. I know how this works, I've seen every episode of Star Trek. The future guy always escapes and saves the day. We should just let him do his thing. That's not how it works, Peter. That's a TV show. Same thing. It's not the same thing. Naruto watched them argue, and for a moment, just a moment, the noise faded. The horns, the hum, the chaos of this place. All of it disappeared, and he was just a boy standing in a street that wasn't his, in a world that didn't make sense, with people who argued like family. That last part hit him harder than he expected. He'd spent so long wanting a family. Fighting for one. Building one. And now, with no warning, he'd been ripped away from it. Boruto. Himawari. Hinata. All of them, somewhere in a dimension he didn't know how to reach, probably panicking, probably searching, probably. I'll go to the hospital, Naruto said, cutting through the argument. His voice was steadier than he felt. But I'm not staying. I need to figure out how to get back. The arguing stopped. Peter and Lois both turned to look at him, and for a moment, something flickered in Lois's expression, something that looked like recognition. Of course, she said softly. We'll help you figure it out. But first, let's get you checked out. You're shaking. Naruto looked down at his hands. She was right. He was shaking. The hospital was loud. Not battle loud. Not the kind of loud that came from explosions and screaming and the weight of the world pressing down on your shoulders. This was a different kind of loud. Machines beeping. People talking in low, hurried voices. A television mounted on the wall playing something he didn't recognize, with people who moved too fast and talked too smooth. Naruto sat on the edge of a bed that crinkled every time he moved, watching Peter try to explain to a nurse that, no, seriously, he fell out of the sky, you should probably check for alien DNA. While Lois tried to physically pull him away from the desk. He's not an alien, Peter. He's a lost teenager who needs medical attention. But Lois. No. But what if? Peter. Naruto's eyes drifted to the window. Outside, the sky was darkening, the gray giving way to a bruised purple that was almost beautiful. He could see buildings, taller than anything in Konoha, made of glass and steel instead of wood and stone. Lights flickering in windows. Cars moving in endless lines. A whole world, completely different from everything he'd ever known. And somewhere out there, in the spaces between this world and his own, was the thing that had grabbed his chakra. He'd felt it. In that moment before everything went white. Something had reached for him. Something that wanted to find him. Something that... You okay? Naruto turned. A boy was standing in the doorway, maybe a few years younger than him, with messy brown hair and a nervous expression. He was wearing a hoodie that was too big for him, and he was holding 2 plastic cups of what looked like juice. I'm Chris, the boy said when Naruto didn't respond. My mom said I should bring you something to drink. She said you probably haven't had anything in a while. He held out one of the cups. It's apple. I think. The machine said apple, but it's kind of yellow, so maybe it's something else. My dad says the hospital juice machines are a scam, but my mom says he's just mad because he tried to get soda once, and it gave him water. Naruto took the cup. The plastic was cool against his fingers, condensation beating on the surface. He didn't drink it. Thanks, he said. Chris hovered in the doorway for a moment, clearly unsure whether he was supposed to leave or stay. So, he said eventually, my dad says you're from the future. Is that true? No. Oh. Chris seemed relieved. Good. Because that would have been weird. My dad's always saying things are from the future. He thought the microwave was from the future for like 3 years. He was afraid to use it. We had to eat cold pizza for a really long time. Despite everything, the confusion, the fear, the ache in his chest that was missing his family, Naruto felt his lips twitch. Your family is different, he said. Chris shrugged. I guess. They're just my family, you know? They're loud and weird and my dad does a lot of stupid stuff, but... He trailed off, looking at his shoes. They're okay. Most of the time. Naruto looked down at the cup in his hands. The yellow juice. The plastic crinkling under him. The sounds of a hospital in a world he didn't understand. And somewhere, deep in his chest, his chakra pulsed. Wrong. Not gone. Just wrong. Like something was waiting. Hey, Chris said, and his voice was softer now, almost careful. Are you gonna be okay? Naruto looked up. The boy in the doorway was looking at him with an expression he recognized. The same look he'd worn 1,000 times when he was younger, when people looked at him with pity instead of fear. You're alone, that look said. You're somewhere you don't belong, and I don't know how to help you, but I want to. Naruto thought about his friends. His family. His world, where he was Hokage, where people respected him, where he had finally found a place that felt like home. Then he looked at Chris, who was still waiting for an answer, still holding his own cup of probably not apple juice, still hovering in the doorway of a hospital room like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to stay. Yeah, Naruto said, and the word felt heavier than it should have. I'm gonna be okay. He didn't know if it was true. But he'd learned a long time ago that sometimes, saying something out loud was the first step to making it real. Peter burst through the door at that moment, Lois following close behind with the expression of a woman who had given up on controlling her husband approximately 11 years ago. Okay, good news, Peter announced. They're not gonna run any tests because Lois made me stop talking about the future thing. Bad news. He pointed at Naruto. You're apparently not injured, which means they want to release you, which means we have to figure out where you're gonna stay. Peter, we talked about this, Lois said. He's staying with us. Just for a few days, until we figure out where he's from and how to get him home. We talked about it. Peter looked genuinely confused. When did we talk about it? I was in the waiting room looking at magazines. There was one with boats. Really nice boats. I didn't know boats could be that nice. While you were looking at boats, I was talking to you. That's not fair. You can't have important conversations while I'm looking at boats. You have to wait until I'm done with the boats. That's just basic conversation etiquette. Lois ignored him, turning to Naruto with an expression that was somewhere between kindness and practicality. You can stay in our guest room. It's small, but it's clean. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. Naruto opened his mouth to argue. He didn't need their help. He could take care of himself. He'd been taking care of himself since he was old enough to steal milk from the corner store, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the way Lois was looking at him. Like he was a problem to be solved, sure, but also like he was a person. Maybe it was Chris, still standing in the doorway, still holding his juice, still looking at Naruto like he was the most interesting thing that had happened all week. Or maybe it was the chakra in his chest, pulsing in that wrong, waiting rhythm, telling him that whatever had brought him here wasn't done with him yet. Okay, Naruto said. Thank you. Peter clapped his hands together. Great! Welcome to Quahog, future boy. You're gonna love it. We've got a bowling alley, a really good fried chicken place, and a guy named Carl who runs the gas station and definitely knows more about the government than he's telling us. It's a whole thing. Naruto stood up, the hospital bed crinkling beneath him. His legs were steadier now. His mind was clearer. He was in a different world. His chakra was strange. He had no idea how to get home. But he'd been in worse situations. Probably. I'm Naruto, he said because introduction seemed like a good place to start. Naruto Uzumaki. Peter Griffin, Peter said, shaking his hand with far more enthusiasm than necessary. And this is my wife Lois, my son Chris, and… He looked around. Where'd Stewie go? Right here, you absolute buffoon. Everyone looked down. Stewie was standing in the doorway, one hand on his hip, the other holding what appeared to be a small notebook. He was looking at Naruto with the intensity of a scientist who had just discovered a new species and was already planning its dissection. I've been observing you, Stewie said, and I have several questions. Stewie, Lois started. How exactly does your chakra work? Is it genetic? Learned? Can it be transferred? If I were to, say, extract a sample of your spinal fluid, would that… Stewie. Naruto looked at the baby. The baby looked at Naruto. And for the first time since he'd crashed into this world, Naruto smiled. It was small. Tired. A little bit scared, if he was being honest. But it was real. Maybe we can talk about it tomorrow, he said. I'm pretty tired. Stewie considered this for a moment, then nodded slowly. Acceptable. But we will be discussing this. And I will be taking notes. Extensive notes. He pulled a tiny pen from somewhere behind his ear and made a mark in his notebook. Naruto followed the Griffin family out of the hospital, into the cool evening air, into a world that made no sense. And somewhere, in the spaces between dimensions, something with too many legs and too many eyes and too much hunger stirred. It had found the chakra again. It was just a matter of time. Naruto woke up to the sound of screaming. Not the good kind of screaming, the kind you hear on a battlefield, or in the middle of a nightmare, or when someone's just discovered that the ramen shop is closed. This was the kind of screaming that came from a grown man trying to microwave a frozen breakfast burrito without taking off the foil wrapper. Peter! Peter, take it out! But Lois, the instructions said. There are no instructions. You can't microwave foil. Naruto sat up in bed so fast his head spun. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. The ceiling was wrong, white instead of wooden beams. The bed was too soft, the walls too close, the air too still. He reached for his chakra on instinct, felt it pulse in response, and the screaming continued. It's on fire! Lois, the burrito is on fire! Then put it out! How? With water, Peter! Use water! I can't! The sink is too far away! Naruto was out of bed before he could think about it, his feet carrying him through the hallway, down the stairs, toward the sounds of chaos. He found the kitchen in a state of controlled disaster. Peter was waving a flaming burrito around his head like an Olympic torch. Lois was trying to wrestle a fire extinguisher out from under the sink. Chris was filming the whole thing on his phone, and a teenage girl with long brown hair was sitting at the kitchen table, eating cereal like nothing was happening. The sink is literally 3 feet away, Lois shouted. That's not far to you, but to me it's an emotional journey. Peter threw the burrito into the sink, where it continued to burn merrily. See? It's still on fire. The sink didn't help. You have to turn the water on. Naruto moved. 1 second he was standing in the doorway. The next, he was at the sink, his hand already turning the faucet, water streaming down onto the flaming burrito with a hiss of steam. The kitchen went quiet. Peter stared at Naruto. Lois stared at Naruto. Chris lowered his phone. The teenage girl, Meg, Naruto would learn later, looked up from her cereal for exactly 1 second, shrugged, and went back to eating. How did you do that? Peter asked. You were all the way over there, and then you were here. Like… He made a whooshing sound. Fast. Really fast. I'm a ninja, Naruto said because that seemed obvious. A ninja. Peter's face lit up. Like in the movies? With the throwing stars and the running on water and the, can you do the thing where you disappear in a cloud of smoke? I can, but... Do it. Do it right now. Peter, no, Lois said, finally extracting the fire extinguisher from under the sink and setting it aside. No one is disappearing in clouds of smoke in my kitchen. We just had a fire. We don't need... She stopped. Naruto was looking at the kitchen. Really looking. The cabinets were a little crooked, like someone had installed them without measuring. There were cartoon magnets on the refrigerator, a cow, a chicken, something that might have been a boat. A calendar on the wall with pictures of dogs dressed as people. A note taped to the microwave that read, in handwriting that was trying very hard to be neat, "Dad, don't put metal in the microwave. It's not funny. Chris." And in the middle of it all, a family that argued and screamed and threw flaming burritos into sinks. Naruto's chest tightened. This isn't your home, he told himself. You're just here until you figure out how to get back. But it had been so long since he'd woken up to noise. To chaos. To people who didn't care that he was there, not because they didn't want him, but because they were too busy being themselves to worry about what he thought. Sorry, Naruto said, realizing he'd been quiet for too long. I didn't mean to, I just heard the screaming and... Don't apologize. Lois's voice had softened. Thank you for putting out the fire. Peter, say thank you. Thank you, future ninja man. I'm not from the... Naruto stopped. It wasn't worth correcting. You're welcome. Well, Lois said, clapping her hands together. Now that the fire is out, who wants breakfast? Real breakfast. Made on the stove. Without any metal. Ooh, can we have pancakes? Chris asked. Pancakes sound great. With the little smiley faces? If you help mix the batter. Yes. Naruto watched them move around the kitchen, a practice dance that only looked chaotic from the outside. Lois pulled out a mixing bowl while Chris retrieved eggs and milk from the refrigerator. Peter sat down at the table next to Meg, who was still eating her cereal with the enthusiasm of someone who had long since learned to tune out the chaos around her. You want some? Lois asked Naruto. There's plenty. His stomach chose that moment to make itself known, growling loud enough for everyone to hear. Yeah, okay. Thanks. He sat down across from Meg, who glanced up at him for a moment before looking back at her cereal. You're the guy who fell out of the sky, she said. It wasn't a question. Yeah. Cool. That was it. No questions about where he came from, no demands for ninja demonstrations, no requests for autographs or explanations. Just cool, and back to her cereal. Naruto found it strangely refreshing. So, Peter said, leaning across the table with the intensity of a man about to ask something very important. If you're a ninja, does that mean you can teach me to be a ninja? I mean, maybe? But it takes years to learn, and you have to have chakra and... I have chakra. I definitely have chakra. I've got tons of it. I'm basically full of chakra. Lois, tell him about my chakra. Lois was pouring pancake batter onto a griddle. Peter, you don't have chakra. How do you know? You're not a ninja doctor. You don't need to be a doctor to know you don't have mystical energy. You can barely walk up the stairs without getting winded. That's different. That's gravity. Gravity is very aggressive in this house. The stairs are steeper than they look. Naruto hid a smile behind his hand. This was so different from everything he'd known. In Konoha, he'd spent years fighting to be seen, to be heard, to be anything other than the demon fox's container. Every meal had been eaten alone, every room he'd entered had gone quiet, every conversation had stopped when he'd walked past. Here, Peter was setting off fires in the microwave and Lois was making pancakes and Chris was drawing smiley faces in the batter and Meg was ignoring all of it in favor of her cereal, and nobody was looking at Naruto like he was a monster. Nobody was looking at him like he was anything at all. Just a person at a kitchen table, waiting for breakfast. You okay? Chris asked, sliding into the chair next to him. You look kinda... I dunno. Sad? I'm fine, Naruto said, and this time it was almost true. Just thinking. About home? Naruto nodded. Yeah. About home. Chris seemed to consider this for a moment. My dad says thinking about home is a waste of time when you could be thinking about pancakes. But my mom says that's just because he doesn't like to think about anything that's not cartoons or boats. Your mom sounds smart. She's okay. Chris shrugged. She yells a lot, but she makes good pancakes. Lois set a plate in front of Naruto, piled high with pancakes shaped like lopsided circles. There were no smiley faces on his, but there was a star drawn in syrup, right in the middle. Eat up, she said. You look like you haven't had a good meal in days. Naruto picked up his fork. The pancakes were warm, a little burned on one side, absolutely swimming in syrup. They were the best thing he'd ever tasted. Not because they were fancy. Not because they were made by a master chef. But because someone had made them for him. Someone had stood at a stove and poured batter into a pan and flipped it at exactly the right moment, and put it on a plate with a syrup star, all for a stranger who had fallen out of the sky and crashed into their car. I don't know how to get home, Naruto said, and the words came out before he could stop them. I don't even know if I can get home. The technique I was using, something went wrong. Something grabbed my chakra. I don't know what it was, but it didn't feel like an accident. The kitchen went quiet again, but this time it was different. Not the awkward silence of strangers who didn't know what to say, but something heavier. Something that made Naruto wish he'd kept his mouth shut. Well, Peter said, breaking the silence with his usual lack of subtlety. That sounds like a tomorrow problem. Today's problems are pancakes. And also figuring out why the microwave is making that noise. It's been making that noise for 3 days. I think it's haunted. It's not haunted, Peter. The door is just loose. Haunted loose. That's a thing. It's not a thing. It could be a thing. You don't know. You're not a ghost expert. Naruto laughed. It surprised him, the sound of it, the way it bubbled up from somewhere he'd forgotten he had. He'd laughed since coming to this world, sure, but not like this. Not the kind of laugh that came from somewhere real. Peter grinned. See? He gets it. The ninja gets it. I don't get it, Lois said, but she was smiling too. The rest of breakfast passed in a blur of noise and syrup and Peter trying to convince Naruto to teach him the disappearing in smoke technique. Meg ate her cereal in silence, occasionally glancing at Naruto with an expression he couldn't quite read. Chris asked questions about ninjas, real questions, not stupid ones, and listened carefully to the answers. And Stewie, who had appeared sometime during the second round of pancakes, sat at the end of the table with his notebook open, taking notes with the intensity of a scholar documenting a rare species. Fascinating, he muttered, scribbling something illegible. Chakra-based speed enhancement. No visible exertion. No external power source. Either he's lying about the mechanism, or he genuinely doesn't understand how it works. I know how it works, Naruto said. Do you? Or do you just do it, the way a bird flies without understanding aerodynamics? Naruto opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He didn't have an answer for that. Stewie's eyes narrowed. That's what I thought. Stewie, stop interrogating our guest, Lois said, stacking the empty plates. Naruto, don't worry about him. He's always like this. He's trying to understand something he can't measure, Naruto said slowly. I get it. Stewie's pen stopped moving. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered in the baby's expression. Something that looked almost like respect. Then it was gone, replaced by his usual mask of intellectual superiority. Obviously, he sniffed. Anyone with half a brain would understand that. It's the people with no brain who concern me. He looked pointedly at Peter. What? What did I do? I'm just sitting here. You're breathing. It's distracting. After breakfast, Naruto found himself on the front porch, staring at a neighborhood that looked nothing like anything he'd ever seen. Identical houses lined identical streets, each one with a patch of grass in front and a car in the driveway. In the distance, he could see buildings that reached toward the sky, their windows glittering in the morning light. This world was so organized. Planned. Everything in its place, everything following rules he didn't understand. Mind if I sit? Naruto turned. Brian was there, the dog he'd learned, who walked on 2 legs and talked and apparently wrote novels that nobody read. He was holding 2 cups of coffee, one of which he offered to Naruto. I don't know what this is, Naruto said, taking the cup. Coffee. It's... Brian paused. How do I describe coffee to someone from another dimension? It's a stimulant. People drink it to wake up. It tastes terrible at first, but eventually you can't live without it. Naruto took a sip. It was bitter and hot, and kind of awful. I don't get it. Nobody does at first. Give it time. Brian sat down on the porch swing next to him, letting out a sigh that seemed too heavy for a dog. So, another dimension, huh? That's what it looks like. And you're not freaking out? Because if I suddenly found myself in a world where everything was different, where the laws of physics didn't work the same way, where I didn't know anyone, I think I'd be freaking out pretty hard. Naruto considered the question. I've been in worse situations. Worse than being trapped in another dimension? I've been alone longer. The words hung in the air between them. Brian was quiet for a moment, his coffee forgotten in his hands. Yeah, he said finally. I know what that's like. They sat in silence for a while, watching cars drive past, watching clouds move across a sky that still looked wrong to Naruto. Your family, Naruto said eventually. They're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Something else. Something quieter. Brian laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Quiet is not a word anyone has ever used to describe the Griffins. Loud. Chaotic. Dysfunctional. All of those, definitely. But quiet? He shook his head. No. They care about each other, though. It wasn't a question, but Brian treated it like one anyway. Yeah, he said slowly. I think they do. In their own weird, broken way. Peter's an idiot, and Lois is stressed out all the time, and Stewie is. Stewie. But they're still here. They're still together. That counts for something, right? Naruto thought about his own family. About Boruto's complaints and Himawari's smile and Hinata's quiet strength. About the village that had once hated him and now called him Hokage. Yeah, he said. It counts. Brian looked at him for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. You're different from what I expected too. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone more dramatic? You fell out of the sky. I figured you'd be running around trying to find a way home, maybe blowing things up with your chakra powers. But you're just sitting here, drinking coffee you don't like, watching the neighborhood. Would running around help? Probably not. Then what's the point? Brian smiled, a real smile, not the fake one he used at parties or when he was trying to impress someone. Fair point. They sat together on the porch, a ninja from another dimension and a dog who wrote novels, watching the morning turn into afternoon, listening to the sounds of a house that was always loud, always chaotic, always something. And somewhere, deep in Naruto's chest, his chakra pulsed. Wrong. Waiting. But maybe, just maybe, a little less wrong than it had been before. By the end of the first week, Naruto had learned several important things about the Griffin household. First, the concept of personal space was treated less as a rule and more as a vague suggestion that everyone ignored. Peter walked into the bathroom while Naruto was showering on day 2, asked him if he wanted to go bowling, and then seemed genuinely confused when Naruto threw a bar of soap at his head. Second, the television was never off. Ever. Even when no one was watching it, it was on, playing a constant stream of images and sounds that Naruto couldn't quite follow but found strangely hypnotic. He'd caught himself sitting in front of it for hours, watching cartoons about a family that looked like donuts, and a dog that chased a rabbit, and a group of people who never seemed to accomplish anything but never seemed to care. Third, and most importantly, the Griffin family had no idea how to deal with someone who took things seriously. You're doing it wrong, Naruto said, watching Peter attempt to throw a shuriken at a cardboard box he'd set up in the backyard. Peter lowered his arm. What do you mean? I'm throwing it exactly like you showed me. You're throwing it with your arm. You need to throw it with your whole body. The power comes from here. Naruto touched his stomach. Not from your shoulder. My stomach? How am I supposed to throw something with my stomach? It's about your center of gravity. Your balance. Your chakra flow. I don't have chakra, remember? Lois said so. And Lois is always right about everything, except that one time she said I couldn't fit 17 hot dogs in my mouth. I fit 17. She counted. Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose. He'd been doing that a lot lately. Just try again. But this time, don't think about your arm. Think about your feet. Your stance is all wrong. Peter looked down at his feet. He was standing with his legs shoulder-width apart, which was correct, but his knees were locked and his weight was leaning back like he was preparing to fall over. My feet are fine. These are my feet. I've had them my whole life. That doesn't mean you know how to use them. I know how to use my feet. I use them every day. To walk. To stand. To kick the TV when it makes that weird noise. That's not... Naruto stopped. Took a breath. Okay. Let's try something else. Let's try a simple punch. Just a straight punch. Pretend I'm... He almost said. An enemy, but caught himself. Peter had a way of taking things literally that made simple training exercises complicated. Pretend I'm a wall. Just hit me. I'm not gonna hit you. You're a guest. Lois would kill me. I'm a ninja. I can take it. I don't know what that means. Are you tough? Are you fragile? You look fragile. You're smaller than me. And you're wearing orange. People who wear orange are usually fragile. It's like a warning color. Stay back, I'm orange, I'll break. I'm not fragile. Just hit me. You sure? I'm sure. Peter pulled his fist back and threw a punch that was somehow both too fast and too slow, all arm and no body, the kind of punch that would hurt his own wrist more than it would hurt anyone else. Naruto caught it easily. Palm open, fingers wrapped around Peter's fist, stopping it inches from his face. See? Peter said, trying to pull his hand back. I knew you were tough. My hand hurts now. Is it supposed to hurt? No, Naruto said. Your form is bad. You're leading with your arm instead of your shoulder. And your feet are still wrong. I told you my feet are. Your left foot is pointed at me. Your right foot is pointed at the house. You're not stable. If I pushed you right now, you'd fall. Push me then. I'm stable. I'm very stable. I'm the most stable person in this house. Lois is always saying I'm stable. Peter, you're so stable, why can't you be stable about doing the dishes? Naruto pushed him. Peter hit the ground with a sound that was half grunt, half surprised yelp. He lay there for a moment, staring up at the sky, his arms spread out like he was making a snow angel on grass. I fell, he said, as if this was new information. Yeah. Because my feet were wrong. Yeah. So if my feet had been right, I wouldn't have fallen. That's the idea. Peter sat up slowly, looking at his feet with a new respect. My feet have been lying to me. All these years. Every step I've taken, every time I've stood up, they've been lying. They're not lying. You just never learn how to stand properly. That's worse. That's so much worse. I've been standing wrong my whole life. What else have I been doing wrong? Walking? Breathing? Eating? Is there a wrong way to eat? Because I've been eating for 42 years and nobody said anything. Naruto sat down next to him in the grass. The sun was warm on his face, the sky was that wrong gray-blue, and somewhere in the distance, a lawnmower was making that rhythmic whirring sound that seemed to be the background music of this world. Everyone does things wrong at first, he said. When I was learning to fight, I fell down more times than I can count. My teacher used to hit me with a stick every time I made a mistake. Peter's eyes went wide. Your teacher hit you with a stick? A lot. That's terrible. Why didn't you just leave? Naruto thought about it. About Iruka-sensei, who had seen him as more than the demon fox. About the long days of training, the frustration, the exhaustion, the moments when he'd wanted to give up. Because he was teaching me, Naruto said. And because I wanted to learn more than I wanted to stop getting hit. Peter was quiet for a moment, a rare thing. Naruto was learning. Huh, he said finally. That's actually kind of deep. You're surprised? I'm surprised by a lot of things about you. You fell out of the sky, you can move faster than I can see, you have magic energy in your stomach, and now you're telling me you used to get hit with sticks to learn how to fight. I thought ninjas were just cool. I didn't know they had to work for it. Everything worth doing takes work. That's not true. Eating takes no work. I'm great at eating. And watching TV. And sleeping. Those are all easy. Those aren't things worth doing. Peter looked offended. Watching TV is absolutely worth doing. Have you seen The Simpsons? It's been on for like 30 years. You don't stay on for 30 years if you're not worth doing. Naruto laughed. He couldn't help it. The way Peter said things, so sure, so confident, even when he was completely wrong, was infectious. You're weird, Naruto said. Thank you. It wasn't a compliment. It sounded like a compliment. I'm taking it as a compliment. They sat in silence for a while, watching the clouds move across the sky. Naruto's chakra pulsed in his chest, still wrong, still waiting, but quieter now. Like it was getting used to this place. Or like whatever had grabbed it was getting closer. Inside the house, Stewie was conducting an experiment. It involved a voltmeter, a very small scalpel, and a plan to acquire a sample of Naruto's chakra that he'd been refining for 3 days. Stewie put that down. Lois was standing in the doorway, her arms crossed. Whatever you're planning, the answer is no. I'm not planning anything. I'm simply making observations. The scientific method requires. The scientific method does not require you to stab our house guest. I wasn't going to stab him. That's barbaric. I was going to make a very small incision. Less than a centimeter. He wouldn't even feel it. Probably. Stewie. Fine. He put the scalpel down with exaggerated reluctance. But you're stifling science. Do you know how many breakthroughs have been made by people willing to push boundaries? Edison. Einstein. That guy who discovered germs by looking at his own teeth. Science requires sacrifice. It requires consent. Ask him if you can take a sample. If he says yes, then fine. But no sneaking. No trickery. And absolutely no stabbing. Stewie considered this. And if he says yes? Then I suppose you can do your experiment. A slow smile spread across Stewie's face. Excellent. He found Naruto in the backyard, sitting in the grass next to Peter, who was now lying on his back making shadow puppets with his hands. Naruto, Stewie said, approaching with the careful stride of a predator who had learned that running scared off the prey. A word. Naruto looked down at the baby. What's up? I have a proposition for you. A mutually beneficial arrangement that will further the cause of science while providing you with valuable data about your own condition. Peter sat up. What's he saying? Is he trying to do the experiment again? Lois said no experiments. Lois said no unconsented experiments. Stewie corrected. I am now seeking consent. A subtle but crucial distinction that separates the scientist from the mad scientist. What's the experiment? Naruto asked. Stewie pulled out his notebook, flipping to a page covered in diagrams and equations. I want to measure your chakra. Not just observe it, actually measure it. Electrical activity, thermal output, any quantifiable data I can collect. In exchange, I'll share my findings with you. You might learn something about why your energy feels wrong in this dimension. Naruto's eyes narrowed. How would you measure it? Non-invasively. At first. A few sensors, some basic readings. If that works, then perhaps a small. He caught Lois's glare from the kitchen window. Sample. A very small sample. The tiniest sample. Microscopic, really. You want to take my blood? I want to take a small portion of your blood. For science. Naruto thought about it. In Konoha, letting someone study his chakra would have been dangerous. His enemies had spent years trying to understand the Ninetales' power, trying to find ways to use it or destroy it. But this wasn't Konoha. Stewie was weird and unsettling and definitely too smart for his own good, but he wasn't an enemy. He was just a baby who wanted to understand something he couldn't explain. Fine, Naruto said. But I get to see everything you find. And if you try anything weird, I'm telling Lois. Stewie's smile was the most terrifying thing Naruto had ever seen, and he'd fought a man who could turn into a giant snake. Agreed. Meet me in my laboratory in 1 hour. And Peter. He turned to Naruto's training partner. Stop making shadow puppets. You look like an idiot. I look like a swan. This is a swan. Can't you see the swan? That's not a swan. That's a hand with fingers spread out. Swan have curved necks. You're just holding your hand up. No. The neck is here. Peter moved his thumb. And the body is here. He moved his other fingers. And the water is here. He wiggled his arm. And it's a swan. A beautiful swan. The most beautiful swan you've ever seen. Stewie looked at Naruto. This is what I have to deal with. Every day. You understand now why I'm the way I am. Naruto watched Peter try to make his shadow swan swim across the grass, his arm flopping up and down, his shadow contorting into shapes that looked nothing like a bird. He's trying, Naruto said. That's the problem. He's always trying. Never succeeding, always trying. Stewie walked back toward the house, his tiny footsteps leaving impressions in the grass. Naruto watched him go, then looked at Peter, who was now making his shadow swan fight an invisible enemy. Did I ever tell you about my sensei? Naruto asked. The one who hit you with sticks? Yeah. He was a lot like you, actually. Loud. Kind of dumb. Never gave up. Peter stopped his shadow puppet battle. Was he a ninja too? He was the most powerful ninja in our village. Peter looked at his hands, still raised in the air, still casting shadows on the grass. Maybe I should get hit with sticks more often. Naruto smiled. Maybe. The experiment took 3 hours. Stewie had converted the basement into a laboratory that looked like something out of a science fiction movie, computers and screens and equipment that Naruto couldn't begin to identify. There were diagrams on the walls, formulas written in a precise hand, and a large glass tank in the corner that Naruto chose not to ask about. Okay, Stewie said, typing rapidly at a keyboard. The sensors are reading something, but it's strange. Your chakra doesn't match any known energy signature in my database. Which is fascinating because my database is quite comprehensive. What does it look like? Naruto asked. He was sitting in a chair with sensors attached to his arms, chest, and head, feeling like a patient in a hospital he didn't understand. It's not what it looks like. It's what it is. And what it is, apparently, is a form of energy that shouldn't exist in this dimension. Which explains why it feels wrong to you. It's not wrong, it's foreign. Your body is trying to operate under physical laws that don't apply here. Is that bad? Stewie considered the question. It's not ideal. Your chakra is essentially trying to push against a wall that doesn't exist. It's like trying to swim through air. You can do it, but it's inefficient. You're expending more energy than you should to achieve less effect. That matched what Naruto had been feeling. His movements were slower, his techniques required more focus, and he tired more quickly than he should. In Konoha, he could fight for hours without stopping. Here, a simple sparring session with Peter left him winded. Can you fix it? He asked. I can't fix the laws of physics. But I might be able to help you adapt. If we can map your chakra flow, find out how it's interacting with this dimension's energy field, we might be able to find a way to make it more efficient. Stewie typed for a few more minutes, then turned to face Naruto. There's something else. Something I noticed in the readings. What? Your chakra isn't stable. It's fluctuating. Rising and falling in a pattern that doesn't match your breathing or your heart rate. It's like something is interfering with it. Something outside your body. Naruto's blood went cold. What kind of something? Stewie's expression was serious now, all traces of his usual smugness gone. I don't know. It's not anything in this room. But it's there. And it's getting stronger. Naruto closed his eyes. He could feel it now, what Stewie was talking about. The pulse in his chest, the rhythm that wasn't his heartbeat, the wrongness that had been there since the moment he'd arrived. Whatever had grabbed his chakra when he'd fallen through dimensions, whatever had redirected his technique, pulled him here, followed him across the void between worlds. It was still looking for him. And it was getting closer. We need to find a way to send me back, Naruto said. Before it finds me here. Stewie looked at the readings on his screen, then at Naruto, then back at the screen. Yeah, he said quietly. I think that's a very good idea. Naruto had always been good at waiting. It was a skill he'd learned young, the ability to sit in silence, to watch and listen, to let the world move around him while he stayed perfectly still. In Konoha, waiting had meant survival. Waiting for the right moment to strike, waiting for enemies to show their weaknesses, waiting for the people who hated him to look away so he could buy food without being chased out of the store. But this waiting was different. This was the waiting of someone who knew something was coming and couldn't do anything to stop it. 3 days had passed since Stewie's experiment. 3 days of watching the sky, feeling his chakra pulse, waiting for something that might not come. 3 days of pretending everything was normal while something clawed at the edges of his awareness. He tried to tell Lois. Tried to explain that there was something out there, something that had followed him from his world, something that was drawn to his chakra like a shark to blood in the water. She'd listened. Really listened, the way Hinata always did, with her whole attention focused on him instead of whatever else was happening around her. Can you fight it? She'd asked. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Then we'll figure it out. Together. That word had caught in his chest. Together. It was such a simple word, such a small thing, but it meant so much more here than it would have in Konoha. In his world, together meant armies. Alliances. People fighting side by side because they had to. Here, together meant Lois making him tea while Peter tried to draw a map of the town on a napkin, Chris looking up. How to fight interdimensional monsters. On the internet, Meg sitting quietly in the corner, watching, listening, saying nothing. Here, together meant a family that had no reason to help him, no reason to care, no reason to put themselves in danger for a stranger who had fallen out of the sky. But they were doing it anyway. You're thinking too loud. Naruto looked up. Meg was standing in the doorway of the guest room, her arms crossed, her expression as blank as it had been the first morning he'd seen her at the breakfast table. Sorry, he said. I didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. I couldn't sleep. She stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think it's going to hurt? Naruto didn't pretend not to understand. I don't know. Maybe. Meg sat on the edge of his bed, her hands folded in her lap. She was wearing pajamas with cartoon dogs on them, the same pattern as the calendar in the kitchen, Naruto noticed. I've been thinking, she said, about what you said, about whatever followed you here. And I've been thinking about how you're not scared. I'm scared. You don't act scared. Acting is different from feeling. Meg was quiet for a moment. My whole life, people have acted like I'm not there. Like I'm invisible. Like the things I say don't matter, the things I feel don't count. And I used to think that was the worst thing that could happen. Being ignored. Being nothing. She looked at her hands. But now I'm thinking maybe it's worse to be seen. To have something out there that wants to find you. That's looking for you. That's coming for you no matter what you do. Naruto didn't know what to say. He'd been seen his whole life, as a monster, as a hero, as something to be feared or worshipped or used. He'd never had the luxury of being invisible. I don't know what's worse, he said finally. Being alone or being hunted. They're both scary in different ways. Meg nodded slowly. I think I'd rather be hunted. Why? Because at least then I'd know someone was looking for me. The words hung in the air between them. Naruto thought about his own childhood, the years of being ignored, of being nothing, of wondering if anyone would notice if he disappeared. And he thought about now, about this family that had taken him in without asking anything in return, about the way Lois made sure he ate enough and Peter asked him stupid questions and Chris watched him train with wide eyes and Stewie measured his chakra and Brian sat with him on the porch and Meg was sitting on his bed at 3 a.m, telling him that being hunted was better than being invisible. You're not invisible, Naruto said. Meg laughed, but it was hollow. You've been here a week. You don't know what it's like. I know what it's like to be ignored. To have people look at you like you're nothing. To wonder if anyone would notice if you were gone. Meg looked at him. Really looked, the way people rarely looked at her. How? Because I was a monster, Naruto said, and the words were easier here than they'd ever been in Konoha. When I was a kid, there was a demon sealed inside me. A fox. A creature that had destroyed our village and killed hundreds of people. Everyone knew. Everyone could see it, even if they couldn't see me. I was just a container. Something to be afraid of. Something to ignore. Meg's eyes were wide. That's horrible. It was. For a long time. Naruto looked at the ceiling, at the cracks that Peter had been promising to fix for 3 years. But then I found people who saw me. Not the demon. Not the container. Me. And everything changed. How did you find them? I didn't give up. I kept trying. Kept failing. Kept getting back up. And eventually some people noticed. Meg was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller than before. Do you think that works for everyone? Or just for people like you? Naruto thought about it. About all the people he'd known who had been invisible, who had stayed invisible, who had faded into the background of their own lives while the world moved on without them. I don't know, he admitted. But I know that giving up doesn't work. I tried that too when I was younger. It didn't make anything better. Meg nodded slowly. She stood up, smoothing her pajama shirt, avoiding his eyes. Thanks, she said. For talking to me. For seeing me, I guess. Thanks for listening. She smiled, a real smile, small and uncertain, but real. Then she left, closing the door softly behind her. Naruto lay back in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around him. His chakra pulsed. Whatever was coming was closer now. He could feel it in his bones, in his teeth, in the spaces between his thoughts. But for the first time since he'd arrived in this world, he didn't feel alone. The next morning, Naruto woke up to find Stewie standing at the foot of his bed, holding a tablet covered in graphs and numbers. I've been running simulations all night, Stewie said without preamble. Based on the data from your chakra readings and the interference pattern I detected, I've developed a theory about what followed you here. Naruto sat up, rubbing his eyes. What kind of theory? The kind that makes me wish I'd taken up stamp collecting instead of interdimensional physics. Stewie turned the tablet around, showing Naruto a complex diagram that looked like a spider web made of light. This is a map of the energy fluctuations in your chakra over the past 72 hours. See this pattern here? He pointed to a series of spikes. That's not natural. That's something external, pushing against your energy field, trying to find a way in. A way into what? To you. To this dimension. To wherever you go. Stewie's voice was grim. Whatever grabbed your chakra when you fell through dimensions, it's been following your energy signature ever since. It's like a shark tracking blood in the water. The more you use your chakra, the stronger the signal gets. And the stronger the signal gets, the closer it comes. Naruto's stomach dropped. So every time I've used my chakra, you've been ringing the dinner bell. Yes. Stewie set the tablet down on the bed. The good news is that I might be able to create a dampening field. Something that masks your energy signature, makes it harder for whatever this is to track you. What's the bad news? The bad news is that I can't create something out of nothing. I need materials. Components. Things that don't exist in this dimension. Naruto frowned. Then how? I'm not finished. Stewie held up a hand. The other option is to send you back. If we can recreate the conditions of your arrival, the exact energy signature, the dimensional coordinates, the temporal alignment, we might be able to open a portal to your world. But it's risky. Get it wrong, and you could end up anywhere. Or anywhen. Or nowhere at all. And if I stay? Then eventually, whatever is out there will find you. And when it does, you'll have to fight it. Here. In a world that doesn't have ninjas or chakra or any of the things you're used to fighting with. Naruto thought about the Griffin family. About Lois making him breakfast, Peter asking stupid questions, Chris watching him train, Meg sitting on his bed at 3 a.m, Brian sitting with him on the porch, Stewie, who had spent all night running simulations to help a stranger. What about the others? Naruto asked. If I stay and fight, what happens to them? Stewie's expression flickered. Something that might have been fear, might have been guilt, might have been something else entirely. I don't know, he said. But I don't think whatever's out there cares about collateral damage. Naruto closed his eyes. He could feel it now, the presence in his chakra, the thing that was getting closer every day, every hour, every moment. It was patient. It was hungry. And it was coming. He thought about running. About leaving the Griffin house, finding somewhere isolated, drawing the creature away from the people who had helped him. It was what a ninja would do. What a hero would do. But he'd spent his whole life running. From the village, from the demon inside him, from the truth about who he was. And running had never solved anything. I'm not leaving, Naruto said. Stewie raised an eyebrow. That's not what I expected to hear. Your family took me in. They fed me, gave me a place to sleep, helped me when they didn't have to. I'm not going to run away and let something destroy their home. You barely know them. I know enough. Naruto swung his legs over the side of the bed, standing up to his full height. I've spent my whole life protecting people. I'm not going to stop now. Stewie stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. You know, he said, I've met a lot of people in my life. Scientists, soldiers, geniuses, idiots. And I've learned that there are two kinds of people in the world, the ones who run away from danger, and the ones who run toward it. You're definitely the second kind. Is that bad? It's suicidal. But it's also, he paused, searching for the word, admirable. In a profoundly stupid way. Naruto laughed. Thanks. I think. Don't thank me yet. If we're going to fight whatever's coming, we need a plan. And we need to train. Your chakra might be weaker here, but you're still a ninja. That has to count for something. It counts for a lot. Good. Then let's get to work. The training started that afternoon. Naruto pushed himself harder than he had in years, running drills in the backyard while Peter watched from the porch, occasionally shouting encouragement that was mostly wrong. Faster! Punch faster! Like you're trying to hit a mosquito. I hate mosquitoes. They're always biting me and then I can't scratch because my arms are too short to reach my back and then Lois has to scratch it for me and she always does it too hard. Peter, Lois said from the kitchen window. Let him focus. I am letting him focus. I'm very focused. Look at my focus. Naruto ignored them, throwing punch after punch, kick after kick, moving through forms he'd learned as a child and perfected as a man. His chakra pulsed with each movement, still wrong, still fighting against a world that didn't want it, but getting stronger. More controlled. More like what it was supposed to be. He could feel the creature watching. Not physically, it wasn't here yet, but in the back of his mind, a presence that grew stronger every time he used his power. Come on, he thought. Come and find me. It was stupid. Reckless. Everything he'd learned as a ninja told him to hide, to wait, to strike when the enemy least expected it. But he'd never been good at waiting. And he'd never been good at hiding. He was Naruto Uzumaki. He'd faced demons and gods and monsters beyond imagination. He'd died and come back, lost everything and rebuilt it, spent his whole life fighting for people who didn't want him until they realized they needed him. Whatever was coming, he was ready. That night, Naruto sat on the porch with Brian, watching the stars appear in the wrong sky. Stewie told me about the thing following you, Brian said. He says it's getting closer? Yeah. And you're not leaving? No. Brian sighed, a long, tired sound that seemed to come from somewhere deep in his chest. You know, I've spent my whole life running. From responsibility, from commitment, from anything that might make me actually have to be a better person. And now I'm living with a guy from another dimension who's about to fight an interdimensional monster in my backyard, and I don't know whether to be inspired or terrified. Both is good. Brian laughed. Yeah, both is good. They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood. A dog barking somewhere in the distance. A car driving past, its headlights cutting through the darkness. The creak of the porch swing as Brian rocked it gently with his foot. Do you miss your home? Brian asked. Naruto thought about Konoha. About the faces on the mountain, the smell of ramen from Ichiraku's, the way the leaves turned gold in autumn. About Hinata's smile, Boruto's complaints, Himawari's laughter. About a life he'd spent years building, a place he'd finally found that felt like it was his. Yeah, he said. I miss it a lot. But you're not going back. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Brian looked at him, his eyes dark in the moonlight. I've been watching you this week. The way you are with Chris, with Meg, with Peter. You're not just waiting to go home. You're building something here. Whether you mean to or not. Naruto didn't know what to say. Because Brian was right. He'd been telling himself that this was temporary. That he was just passing through, that he'd find a way home and everything would go back to normal. But somewhere along the way, between the flaming burritos and the shadow puppets and the late-night conversations with a teenage girl who felt invisible, he'd stopped being a guest and started being something else. What if I don't want to leave? The words came out before he could stop them, quieter than he intended, almost a whisper. Brian was quiet for a moment. Then you don't leave. It's not that simple. I have a family. Responsibilities. People who need me. People here need you too. Naruto looked at Brian. You barely know me. I know that my father. Brian paused, the word catching in his throat. That Peter has been happier this week than I've seen him in years. I know that Chris looks up to you. I know that Meg talked to you. Actually talked. Not at you, not through you, but to you. Do you know how rare that is? Naruto shook his head. She's invisible in this house. In this town. In her whole life. And you made her feel seen. That's not nothing, Naruto. That's everything. Naruto stared out at the street, at the houses with their lights on, at the families living their lives, at a world that made no sense but somehow made space for him anyway. I don't know what to do, he admitted. Nobody does, Brian said. That's the thing about life. Nobody has the answers. We're all just making it up as we go along, hoping we don't screw up too badly. That's a terrible way to live. Yeah, Brian said. But it's the only way there is. They sat together on the porch, a ninja from another world and a dog who wrote novels, watching the stars in a sky that was wrong but beautiful, waiting for something that was coming, hoping they'd be ready when it arrived. Inside the house, the lights flickered once. Twice. Then went out. The power outage lasted exactly 47 seconds. That was the first thing Naruto noticed when the lights came back on, the number. 47 seconds of darkness, of silence, of something pressing against the edges of the house like a hand testing a door to see if it was locked. The second thing he noticed was that his chakra was screaming. Not the slow, rhythmic pulse he'd been feeling for days. This was a siren in his chest, a warning klaxon that set his teeth on edge and made his hands curl into fists before his brain had fully processed what was happening. Did the power go out? Peter's voice drifted from the living room, completely unconcerned. I hate when the power goes out. It makes the TV stop working. That's the only thing the power is good for, and then it stops doing it. It was a brownout, Lois said. Probably just a transformer somewhere. Nothing to worry about. But Naruto was already moving. He found Stewie in the basement, standing in front of his equipment with an expression that Naruto had never seen on a baby's face before. It took him a moment to identify it, and when he did, his blood ran cold. Fear. Real fear. It's here, Stewie said without turning around. Or close enough that it doesn't matter. What do you mean? Stewie gestured at his screens, which were showing readings that Naruto couldn't interpret but could clearly see were wrong. Lines that should have been smooth were jagged. Numbers that should have been stable were climbing. And at the center of it all, a pulsing red dot that was moving across the screen like a heartbeat. I mean that whatever followed you here, it's in Quahog. And it's looking for you. Naruto stared at the screen. The red dot was moving slowly, methodically, like something that was searching. It was 2 miles away. Maybe 3. Close enough to reach them in minutes if it moved fast. Close enough to be a threat. How do you know it's looking for me? Because it's following your energy signature. Every time you've used your chakra, training with Peter, the sensors I attached, even just existing in this dimension, you've left a trail. And it's been following that trail since the moment you arrived. Stewie finally turned around, and his face was pale. The power outage wasn't a brownout. It was testing us. Seeing if we could feel it. Seeing if we would react. Did we react? You're standing in my basement at midnight asking me questions about an interdimensional predator. I'd say that counts as reacting. Naruto looked at the screen again. The red dot was closer now. 1.5 miles. We need to warn everyone. Warn them of what? Hey, there's a monster from another dimension in town, please don't panic. This is Quahog, Naruto. People here think crop circles are caused by drunk farmers and UFOs are weather balloons. They're not going to believe us until it's too late. Then we don't tell them the truth. We tell them enough to keep them safe. Stewie considered this for a moment, then nodded. Fine. But we do it my way. 15 minutes later, the entire Griffin family was gathered in the living room. Lois was sitting on the couch with her arms crossed, Chris was on the floor with his laptop, Meg was in the armchair by the window, Peter was standing in front of the TV like he was about to deliver a State of the Union address, and Brian was curled up on the rug, pretending to be asleep but clearly listening to everything. Okay, Peter said, clapping his hands together. What's the emergency? Is it aliens? I've been saying it's aliens for years. Remember when I said the mailman was an alien and everyone laughed? Who's laughing now? Peter, sit down, Lois said. Let Naruto explain. Peter sat. Immediately stood up again. Sat down. Stood up. I can't sit. There's too much energy in the room. Can we open a window? I need air. I need. Peter. Right. Sitting. I'm sitting. See? Sitting. He sat down hard enough that the couch bounced. Naruto took a breath. He'd faced down enemies before. Had given speeches to armies, to villages, to the entire Shinobi Alliance. But somehow, standing in this living room, looking at this family that had taken him in, the words were harder than he expected. Something followed me here, he said. From my world. I don't know what it is, Stewie's been trying to figure it out, but it's in Quahog. And it's looking for me. The room went very quiet. Chris's laptop made a small sound as it went to sleep. Meg's hands tightened on the arms of her chair. Brian opened one eye, then the other, and sat up slowly. What kind of something? Lois asked. Her voice was steady, but Naruto could see her knuckles were white where she was gripping the couch cushion. I don't know. I've never felt anything like it. But it's strong. Stronger than anything I've faced in a long time. Stronger than what? Peter asked. Give me a comparison. Is it stronger than a car? Stronger than a house? Stronger than that one time I tried to fight a bear at the zoo? Stronger than all of those things. Peter's face went through a complex series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, concern, and then, surprisingly, something that looked like determination. So we fight it, he said. Peter, Lois started. No, listen. This kid fell out of the sky and landed in our lives. He's been teaching me ninja stuff and eating our food and being generally nice, and now there's some monster coming to get him. We can't just let it take him. That's not how we do things. That's not what I'm suggesting. But we need to be smart about this. We need a plan. I have a plan, Peter said. We hit it really hard until it goes away. That's not a plan. It's a plan. It's just a simple plan. Simple plans are better than complicated plans. Remember when we tried to build that deck and you had the complicated plan with the diagrams and the measurements, and it took 3 weeks? And then we did my simple plan with the nails and the hammer, and it took 3 hours? It fell down, Peter. The deck fell down. But it was 3 hours. That's efficiency. Naruto stepped between them before the argument could escalate. Peter's not wrong. Not completely. We do need to fight it. But we need to fight it smart. I've faced things like this before. They're drawn to chakra, to my energy. The more I use it, the stronger the signal gets. But if I don't use it, I can't fight. So what do we do? Chris asked. His voice was higher than usual, and he was clutching his laptop like a shield. Naruto looked at Stewie. Stewie looked at his tablet, where the red dot was still moving, still searching, still getting closer. We lure it somewhere away from people, Naruto said. Somewhere I can fight without putting anyone in danger. And where is that supposed to be? Lois asked. This is a town. There are people everywhere. The quarry, Peter said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. The old quarry out on Route 7. Nobody goes there anymore. It's got a big pit and a bunch of rocks, and it's really far from anything. Plus there's that old crane thing that I've always wanted to operate. If we're gonna fight a monster, I want to operate a crane. That's actually not a bad idea, Brian said, sounding surprised. The quarry is abandoned. It's isolated. And it's big enough that a fight wouldn't spill over into the town. Peter beamed. See? I have good ideas. I have the best ideas. People always say, Peter, your ideas are terrible, but then they use them and they're like, oh, that idea was actually good. I'm sorry I doubted you. That's never happened, Lois said. It's happening right now. You're doing it. You're saying it. I'm not saying it. You're thinking it. That counts. Naruto ignored them, looking at Stewie's tablet. The red dot was closer now. Much closer. We need to move fast. It'll be here by morning. Morning? Meg's voice was small. That's only a few hours away. Then we don't have time to waste. Naruto turned to the family, and for a moment, he let them see what he really was. Not the confused teenager who'd fallen out of the sky. Not the guest who ate their food and watched their TV. But the soldier. The fighter. The man who had faced gods and demons and never, not once, backed down. I need you to listen to me, he said, and his voice was different now. Harder. Sharper. The voice of someone who had given orders in battles that decided the fate of nations. When this thing comes, I'm going to fight it. I'm going to draw it away from the house, away from the town, and I'm going to fight it at the quarry. You need to stay here. All of you. No matter what happens, no matter what you hear, you stay here. Do you understand? I understand that that's a stupid plan, Peter said. You're gonna fight a monster by yourself? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I've heard some really dumb things. I've said most of them. Peter's right, Lois said. You can't fight this thing alone. You said yourself your chakra is weaker here. You need help. I need to keep you safe. You don't get to decide that for us. Lois stood up, and for a moment she looked less like a stressed-out housewife and more like the woman who had faced down her own demons, who had chosen this life, this family, this chaos, and refused to apologize for any of it. You came into our home. You ate at our table. You made my children smile. You don't get to turn around and tell us to hide while you risk your life for us. That's not how family works. The word hit Naruto like a punch to the chest. Family. He'd been telling himself for days that this was temporary. That these people were just helping him until he found a way home. That he couldn't let himself get attached, couldn't let himself care, because caring meant staying and staying meant leaving everything he'd built behind. But Lois was right. He didn't get to decide for them. Fine, he said. But you follow my lead. When I say run, you run. When I say hide, you hide. This thing is dangerous, and I won't be responsible for. You won't be responsible for anything, Lois interrupted. We're all responsible. That's what family means. The rest of the night passed in a blur of preparation. Stewie worked frantically in the basement, calibrating his equipment and trying to figure out exactly what they were dealing with. Naruto trained in the backyard, pushing his chakra to its limits, feeling the wrongness of this dimension but forcing his power to respond anyway. Chris and Meg packed supplies, water, flashlights, first aid kits, while Lois made phone calls, canceling appointments and making excuses for why the family would be unreachable for the next few days. And Peter? Peter stood in the garage, staring at a wall of tools he never used, trying to figure out which ones would be most useful for fighting an interdimensional monster. This one's heavy, he said, holding up a sledgehammer. Heavy is good. Heavy means it hurts when you hit things. That's not how it works, Brian said from the doorway. How do you know? You've never fought an interdimensional monster. Neither have you. Yeah, but I've hit things. You hit things with heavy things, they hurt. That's basic physics. Brian opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He couldn't find a flaw in the logic. By the time the sky began to lighten, they were as ready as they were going to be. Naruto stood in the backyard, watching the horizon turn from black to gray to pale pink. His chakra was humming now, a constant vibration in his chest, and he could feel the creature moving through the town, searching, hunting. It was close. A mile away. Half a mile. A quarter. And then it stopped. Naruto frowned. The presence in his chakra had been moving steadily for hours, and now it was just still, waiting. Why isn't it moving? He asked Stewie, who had joined him in the yard with his tablet. It's found something. Something that's not you. Naruto's blood ran cold. What? Stewie's fingers flew across the screen, pulling up maps and readings and data that Naruto couldn't understand. When he looked up, his face was white. There's another energy signature. Smaller than yours, but similar. Like a weaker version of your chakra. And the creature is moving toward it. That's impossible. I'm the only one from my world here. There's no other. He stopped. Because there was someone else. Someone he'd been thinking about for days, wondering about, hoping for. If the creature had found him. If there was another chakra signature in Quahog. Someone followed me. Naruto breathed. Someone from my world came through the same portal. Or something, Stewie said darkly. We don't know what that other signature is. It could be a person. It could be bait. It could be a trap. Or it could be someone who needs help. Naruto was already moving, his body carrying him toward the fence, toward the street, toward the presence that was calling to him from across the town. Naruto, wait! Stewie shouted. We don't know what you're running into. I know someone's in trouble. That's enough. He vaulted over the fence and hit the ground running, his chakra flaring, his body moving faster than it had since he'd arrived in this world. The wrongness of the dimension pressed against him, tried to slow him down, but he pushed through it, forcing his power to respond. Behind him, he heard Peter's voice. Where's he going? Is he running away? I thought we agreed to fight together. He's going to find the other signature, Stewie said. And if we don't follow him, he's going to die alone. Naruto ran through the streets of Quahog as the sun rose, his feet barely touching the ground, his chakra burning in his chest like a second heart. He'd been running for less than 2 minutes when he felt it. Not the creature, that was still waiting, still hunting, still somewhere ahead of him. Something else. Something familiar. He rounded a corner and stopped. In the middle of the street, surrounded by a circle of shattered pavement and flickering streetlights, was a figure. Small. Curled in on itself. Dressed in clothes that were torn and burned, stained with blood that Naruto knew wasn't hers. Sakura? The figure didn't move. Naruto ran to her, dropping to his knees, turning her over gently. Her face was bruised, her eyes closed, her breathing shallow. But she was alive. Sakura, wake up. Wake up! Her eyes fluttered open. For a moment, they were unfocused, seeing something that wasn't there. Then they found his face, and something in them changed. Naruto? Her voice was a whisper, cracked and dry. You're here. I found you. How did you? What happened? Sasuke. He felt it when you disappeared. The space-time technique, something grabbed you. Something from between dimensions. Sasuke tried to follow, tried to pull you back, but the thing. She coughed, and Naruto saw blood on her lips. It was stronger than he expected. He opened a portal, pushed me through, told me to find you. He's still there, Naruto. Still fighting. Still holding it back. Naruto's world narrowed to a single point. Sasuke was fighting. Alone. In the space between dimensions, against something that had nearly killed him, something that was strong enough to pull a Hokage across realities. And Sakura was here, bleeding, dying, because she had come to find him. I'm getting you out of here, Naruto said, lifting her in his arms. There's a place we can hide. People who can help. No. Sakura's hand closed around his wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. You don't understand. The thing that grabbed you, it's not just following you. It's using you. Your chakra is a beacon, but it's also a leash. The more you use your power, the stronger it gets. And the stronger it gets, the faster Sasuke's barrier fails. Naruto stared at her. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you fight it, you lose. If you run, you lose. The only way to stop it is to close the connection between this world and the space between. And the only way to close the connection is to send you back. Her eyes closed again, and for a terrible moment, Naruto thought she was gone. But her chest was still moving, her pulse still beating against his fingers. Sakura, stay with me. Please. I'm not going anywhere, she whispered. I came to bring you home, you idiot. I'm not leaving without you. Naruto lifted her, cradling her against his chest, and ran. He found the Griffins in the middle of the street, Peter holding a sledgehammer, Chris carrying a baseball bat, Meg with a flashlight that she was pointing at everything that moved, Lois with her phone out, ready to call for help, and Brian. Brian was holding a book. Naruto didn't ask why. That's a person, Peter shouted when he saw Sakura. That's a real person. I thought it was going to be a monster, but that's just a girl. Why is she bleeding? Did the monster get her? Are there two monsters? Because I only prepared for one monster. She's from my world, Naruto said, pushing past them toward the house. She came to help me. But she's hurt. Badly. I'll get the first aid kit, Lois said, already moving. Meg, call 911. Wait. Stewie's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and clear. Look. He was pointing at Naruto's back. At the air behind him. It was shimmering. Like heat rising off pavement on a summer day, the air was distorting, bending, cracking. And in the cracks, something was moving. Something dark. Something with too many legs and too many eyes and too many teeth. Okay, Peter said, his voice suddenly very quiet. That's definitely a monster. The crack widened. The thing in the dark began to emerge. And Naruto, holding Sakura in his arms, felt his chakra pulse one final time before it went completely, terrifyingly silent. The connection was closed. And they were trapped. The silence was the worst part. Naruto had lived with noise his whole life. The constant hum of chakra, the whisper of leaves in the wind, the voices of the Ninetales in the back of his mind. Even in his quietest moments, there had always been something. A presence. A pulse. A reminder that he was alive, that he was connected to something bigger than himself. Now there was nothing. Sakura's words echoed in his head. The only way to stop it is to close the connection between this world and the space between. And the only way to close the connection is to send you back. But he wasn't back. He was here, standing in the middle of a street in Quahog, holding his friend's broken body, while something from the spaces between dimensions clawed its way into reality. And his chakra was gone. Not weaker. Not different. Gone. Like someone had reached into his chest and pulled out the core of who he was, leaving nothing but an empty space where his power used to be. Naruto. Sakura's voice was barely a whisper. You need to run. I'm not running. You can't fight without chakra. You know that. You're a sitting duck. Then I'll fight without chakra. I've done it before. When you were a child. Against enemies who didn't want to eat your soul. She coughed, and more blood stained her lips. This is different, Naruto. This thing, Sasuke said it was old. Older than Kaguya. Older than anything we've ever faced. It's been sleeping in the space between dimensions for millennia, waiting for something to wake it up. Your chakra was the alarm clock. Naruto looked at the crack in the air. It was wider now, wider than a door, wider than a house. And through it, he could see things he didn't have words for. Colors that weren't colors. Shapes that weren't shapes. And somewhere in the middle of it all, a presence that pressed against his mind like a thumb against a bruise. Sakura, listen to me. He knelt down, laying her gently on the grass, ignoring the shouts of the Griffin family behind him. Is there any way to get my chakra back? Any way to reopen the connection? I don't know. Sasuke was the one who understood the technique. Her voice cracked. I just came to find you. You found me. That's what matters. He stood up, turning to face the crack in reality. The Griffin family had gathered behind him, Peter still holding his sledgehammer, Chris gripping his baseball bat like a lifeline, Meg pointing her flashlight at the darkness like she could scare it away, Brian holding his book like it was a shield, and Lois. Lois was standing at the front, her arms crossed, her expression the same one she wore when Peter did something particularly stupid. The expression that said I've seen worse, I've handled worse, and I'm not about to let this beat me. Okay, she said. What do we do? Naruto stared at her. You should be running. All of you. This isn't your fight. Peter already explained that to us. We're not running. I didn't explain anything, Peter said. I was too busy holding the hammer. Hammers don't explain things. Hammers do things. Then let me explain it, Lois said. You came into our home. You became part of our family. And now something is trying to hurt you. We don't abandon family in this house. Even when it's stupid. Even when it's dangerous. Even when we don't know what we're doing. She paused. Especially when we don't know what we're doing. That's kind of our thing. Naruto opened his mouth to argue, but before he could, the crack in reality screamed. It wasn't a sound, not really. It was a pressure, a weight, a presence that pushed against his skull and made his ears ring and his vision blur. The Griffin family stumbled back, Chris dropping his bat, Meg dropping her flashlight, Peter swinging his sledgehammer at nothing. And through the crack, something came. It was large. That was the first thing Naruto noticed. Larger than a building, larger than anything he'd ever fought. And it was wrong in ways that made his brain hurt to look at. It had too many legs, too many eyes, too many mouths, and none of them were where they should be. Its body shifted and flowed like smoke, like water, like something that hadn't quite decided what shape it wanted to be. But its eyes, the ones that were in the front, the ones that seemed to focus on Naruto, those were clear. Those were hungry. Chakra, something whispered in his mind. Mine. Finally. Mine. Naruto stood his ground. You want me? He shouted, his voice raw, his hands empty. Then come get me. The thing moved. It was faster than something that size should be, faster than anything had a right to be. One moment it was at the crack, the next it was in the street, its body blocking out the sky, its legs reaching for Naruto like fingers reaching for a toy. And then Peter hit it with a sledgehammer. The sound was like thunder, like a car crash, like nothing Naruto had ever heard. The sledgehammer connected with one of the thing's legs, and for a moment, just a moment, the leg flickered. Shifted. Became something less solid than it had been. Ha! Peter screamed, his face red with effort and terror and something that looked like joy. I hit it! I actually hit it! Lois, did you see that? The thing turned its attention to Peter. And Naruto moved. Without chakra, he was slower. Weaker. Human in a way he hadn't been since he was 12 years old. But he'd spent 12 years being human before he learned to be anything else. He knew how to run, how to dodge, how to throw himself between danger and the people he protected. He tackled Peter out of the way just as one of the thing's legs came down where he'd been standing. The impact shattered the pavement, sending chunks of asphalt flying like shrapnel. Okay, Peter said, his voice high and tight. That was close. That was very close. I don't like close. Close is bad. Close is the opposite of far, and far is where I want to be right now. Then go far, Naruto said, pulling him to his feet. Get your family out of here. Take Sakura. Go somewhere safe. Where is safe? There's a monster in the street. There's no safe. There's only. He looked at his family. At Lois, who was pulling Chris and Meg toward the house. At Brian, who was trying to pick up Sakura without hurting her. At Stewie, who was standing in the middle of the chaos, staring at the creature with an expression of pure, focused intensity. Stewie! Naruto shouted. What are you doing? I'm thinking, the baby shouted back. Give me a moment. There has to be a weakness. Everything has a weakness. The creature was moving again, its legs reaching, its mouth opening, its eyes fixed on Naruto. It knew. Somehow, it knew that he was the source, the target, the reason it was here. And without his chakra, without his power, without anything but his hands and his feet and a stubborn refusal to die, he was going to have to fight it anyway. The fight lasted longer than it should have. Naruto had spent his life learning to fight without chakra. In the academy, before he could control his energy, he'd learned to throw a punch, to block a kick, to fall without breaking anything important. And later, when Kurama's chakra was sealed or stolen or just too dangerous to use, he'd fallen back on those basics again and again. But he'd never fought anything like this. The creature wasn't solid, not really. When he hit it, his fists passed through it like smoke, like shadow, like something that wasn't quite there. When it hit him, the impact was real enough, he felt it in his bones, in his teeth, in the places where bruises were already forming. He dodged another leg, rolled under another mouth, came up swinging at an eye that wasn't where it was supposed to be. His knuckles connected with something that felt like glass, like ice, like the scream of a dying star. The creature howled. Not in pain, Naruto realized. In frustration. It couldn't touch him. Not really. It could knock him around, throw him into cars and buildings and the hard, unyielding pavement. But it couldn't grab him. Couldn't hold him. Couldn't do whatever it had come to do. Because his chakra was gone. It's using you, Sakura had said. Your chakra is a beacon, but it's also a leash. Without the leash, the creature couldn't hold him. But it could still kill him. A leg caught him in the chest, sending him flying across the street. He hit a parked car hard enough to dent the door, slid off the hood, landed on his back in the middle of the road. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Could only lie there, staring up at the sky, watching the creature loom over him like a mountain of teeth and hunger. This is it, he thought. This is how it ends. Not in Konoha. Not as Hokage. In a street in a world that isn't mine, fighting something I can't beat alone. But he wasn't alone. Naruto! Chris's voice cut through the chaos. Naruto turned his head, saw the teenager running toward him with something in his hands. A fire extinguisher. The same one Lois had tried to use on Peter's flaming burrito. Chris pulled the pin, aimed, and sprayed. The foam hit the creature's leg, and for a moment, nothing. Then the leg started to smoke. Then it started to dissolve. Foam! Peter shouted from somewhere nearby. IT hates foam. Everyone get foam! I don't think it's the foam. Stewie yelled back. I think it's the pressure. The physical matter is disrupting its cohesion. What does that mean? It means hit it with things. Lots of things. All the things. Now. What followed was the strangest battle Naruto had ever been a part of. Peter grabbed a trash can and threw it at the creature's head. Lois came out of the house with a frying pan and started hitting anything that got close. Meg found a garden hose and sprayed water at its legs. Brian picked up a rock and threw it with the accuracy of someone who had never thrown anything in his life. And Chris kept spraying foam, kept moving, kept putting himself between Naruto and the creature's reach. I got you! He shouted, his voice cracking, his hands shaking, but his feet planted. I got you, Naruto! I'm not letting it get you! Naruto pushed himself to his feet, ignoring the pain in his chest, the blood in his mouth, the way his legs wanted to fold under him. You need to get back, he said. It's too dangerous. You need help, Chris shot back. And I'm helping. The creature screamed again, louder this time, more frustrated. It pulled back from the assault, its legs retreating, its mouth closing, its eyes, all of them, fixed on Naruto. Chakra, it pulsed. Give me chakra. Give me you. And for a moment, just a moment, Naruto almost did. Not on purpose. Not consciously. But the thing in his chest, the empty space where his chakra used to be, was hungry. It wanted to be filled. It wanted to be whole. And the creature was offering, not chakra, not power, but something else. Something that felt like it might be the same. No. He pushed the hunger down, buried it, locked it away in the same place he'd locked away his fear and his doubt, and his loneliness for so many years. I'm not giving you anything, he said. I'm not your food. I'm not your tool. I'm not your anything. The creature's eyes narrowed. Then it moved. Not toward him. Toward Chris. Naruto didn't think. He moved on instinct, on training, on something deeper than thought. His body threw itself between Chris and the creature, his arms spread wide, his back to the thing that wanted to eat him, his face to the boy who had saved him. He was going to die. He knew it. He could feel it, the weight of the creature's leg coming down, the pressure of its hunger pressing against his skin, the cold of its presence reaching for his spine. But Chris was behind him. And that was enough. The impact never came. Instead, there was light. Golden, warm, familiar light that pushed back the darkness and made the creature scream in something that sounded like fear. Naruto opened his eyes. Sakura was standing behind him. Her hand was raised, her palm glowing with a light that shouldn't exist in this world, a light that Naruto recognized from 100 battles, 1,000 training sessions, 1,000,000 moments when she'd saved his life. Sorry I'm late, she said, and her voice was stronger now, steadier. Had to heal myself first. Couldn't let you have all the fun. Your chakra is borrowed. Sasuke gave it to me before he closed the portal. Enough for one technique. Maybe two. She smiled, and despite the blood on her clothes, the bruises on her face, the exhaustion in her eyes, she looked like the Sakura he'd always known. The one who never gave up. The one who saved him, again and again. I was saving it for an emergency. The creature recoiled from the light, its legs retreating, its mouth closing, its eyes, all of them, squeezed shut. Wrong, it pulsed. Wrong light. Wrong world. Wrong. You're the one who's wrong, Naruto said. And for the first time since his chakra had gone silent, he felt something stir in his chest. Not power. Not energy. Something else. Something that had been there his whole life, even when the Nine Tails had been sealed away, even when his chakra had been blocked or stolen or drained. Hope. Sakura, he said. The light. Can you make it brighter? I can try. But it'll use the rest of my chakra. Everything Sasuke gave me. Do it. But if I do... Trust me. She looked at him for a moment. Then she smiled. I always do. The light grew. It pushed back the creature, pushed it toward the crack in reality, pushed it toward the space between worlds where it belonged. The creature screamed, fought, clawed at the ground with its too many legs, but it couldn't stop. The light was too bright, too warm, too right for this wrong thing that had come from the spaces between. And then, just as the creature reached the crack, Peter threw his sledgehammer. It wasn't a good throw. It wasn't a skilled throw. It was the throw of a man who had spent his life throwing things badly, who had never hit anything he aimed at, who had no business being anywhere near a fight with an interdimensional monster. But the sledgehammer flew straight and true, spinning through the air, end over end, until it hit the creature right in the center of its too many eyes. The creature screamed. The crack closed. And the light went out. Naruto stood in the middle of the street, breathing hard, watching the place where the creature had been. The air was still now. The sky was lightening, the sun rising over Quahog like nothing had happened. Like there hadn't been a monster in the street. Like a woman from another world hadn't used her last reserves of power to save them all. Like a man who couldn't throw a sledgehammer properly had somehow thrown it perfectly when it mattered most. Did we win? Peter asked. Naruto looked at his hands. They were shaking. He couldn't stop them. Yeah, he said. I think we did. Peter let out a whoop of joy, grabbing Lois and spinning her around. Chris dropped the fire extinguisher and fell to his knees, laughing and crying at the same time. Meg dropped the hose and hugged Brian, who hugged her back without thinking about it. And Sakura. Sakura was lying on the ground, her eyes closed, her face pale. Sakura. Naruto dropped to his knees beside her. Sakura, wake up. Her eyes fluttered open. Barely. Did it work? It worked. You did it. Good. She smiled, a ghost of her usual grin. That's the last time I let Sasuke talk me into anything. Portal jumping is worse than childbirth. And I've had a kid. I know what I'm talking about. Naruto laughed, and the sound was broken, cracked, halfway to a sob. You're insane. You're completely insane. You're one to talk. Her hand found his, squeezed weakly. You jumped into a portal without thinking. Without telling anyone. Without even leaving a note. Boruto is going to kill you when you get back. When I get back, Naruto repeated. Yeah. When you get back. Her eyes closed again. You are coming back, right? Naruto looked up at the Griffin family. At Peter, who was still spinning Lois around. At Chris, who was sitting on the curb, staring at the sky. At Meg, who was hugging Brian like she didn't want to let go. At Stewie, who was standing at the edge of the group, his tablet forgotten, his eyes fixed on Naruto with an expression that was almost human. I don't know, he said. And for the first time since he'd arrived in this world, he wasn't sure which home he was talking about.